Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to Disgruntled USA on Excluded Media. My name is Brett Segal, the Disgruntled Millennial. I always broadcast to you from a bunker, from my safe space where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. We have a very, very special guest, a couple very special guests, a very special event that we've got today. There is several things that we're going to talk about. It is going to be a debate, a fiery debate, hopefully not too fiery, between YouTube firebrand Hunter Avallone and writer and YouTuber Alysa McNerney. We are going to talk a little bit about LGBT stuff. We're going to talk about Trump. We're going to talk about Nazis, free speech, a whole bunch of good stuff. It's going to be a very, very great debate. I will be moderating this debate. We're going to keep it civil, fair, and objective. Okay, no one is getting demolished. No one is getting obliterated or annihilated. No one is getting owned either, okay? We're going to have a rational exchange of ideas, and we will all walk away better and more informed than before, okay? So this is the time where we'll introduce our guests. We have Hunter Avallone. Give us a little bit about yourself so we can knock this out and then get this thing started.
Thanks for having me on, Brett. My name is Hunter Avallone. I run a fairly large conservative YouTube channel, and I'm looking forward to the debate today.
Excellent. Alysa?
Hi, yeah, I am Alysa McNerney. I run a YouTube channel that I'm still working on, just actually became an official part of the program. It's called Final Facts with Alysa. And thanks so much for having me on today, Brett, and I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Let's just talk just a little tiny bit about what brings you guys both here today. Alysa, I'll let you take this one.
Okay, so I actually, like I said, I'm trying to really get the channel off the ground, and I actually raised over $1,000 last year from September to October in order to attend Politicon to try to promote my channel out in California. So while we were there, Hunter actually approached our table, and I was kind of doing like 5-minute debates with like a spin the wheel. So I was trying to keep it at 5 minutes because, you know, I obviously had a lot of people to talk to. So Hunter came over and we obviously had some back and forth. And that was like the first day and the second day. We had scheduled a debate originally for, I don't know, what'd you say, it was like a month ago, or was that like end of last year?
It was back, yeah, it was a couple months ago.
It was like end of last year, a couple months ago. And yeah, I guess there was just some miscommunication. I had to cancel because of some personal family issues. And by the time it was brought back to me to reschedule, I had already actually picked up a second job because I work full-time, part-time, freelance, and do the YouTube. So I work like 60 to 70 hours a week. So I really only get like 1 day off a month. So I tried to make it work today, and yeah, here we are.
Excellent. Well, we're very glad to have you here. All right, let's jump right into the debate. We're going to talk a little bit. The first topic is going to be about Trump and LGBT. And what we're going to do first is we are going to give the first question over to Alysa. Okay, why don't you try, let's try this, okay? Define transphobia and illustrate why you think it is or isn't a profound social issue.
So I would really define transphobia as just having any type of hatred towards trans people just because of the fact that they're trans, or believing that they shouldn't have any equal rights or anything like that. I definitely still see it as a tangible issue today. I mean, there's plenty of evidence, especially with the Trump administration, with the military ban, with their agenda. I don't know if you guys know this. Oh, well, just for specifically trans. I'm sorry, because I don't want to get too much into all LGBTQ, but just specifically for trans individuals. The Trump admin also wants to roll back rulings that prevent doctors, hospitals, and health insurance companies from discriminating against transgender people. Jeff Sessions also reversed discrimination law policy, saying that transgender individuals could be denied employment just because they are trans. We also have some stuff with our current education department that's gotten rid of guidelines that were in place to create a more equal learning space for transgender students. So I definitely think it's a very tangible issue today. And I have several people close to me that are trans that I talk about this with on a regular basis. And I attend a lot of transgender activist events and things like that to stay informed. And from that side of the aisle, from the people who this is actually affecting, they obviously seem very concerned about it.
Okay, Hunter, how about yourself? How would you define transphobia and why you think it is or isn't a profound social issue?
I think transphobia is an irrational fear of transgender people. And yes, I agree with Alyssa, is a discrimination, hatred towards people for being transgender. I agree that transphobia is a real thing. I agree that it exists. I agree that there are people who despise transgender people and wish harm upon them. I am not one of those people, which I'm sure we will get into later. Yeah, see, you're already rolling your eyes. So, all right. And I also do not think that the Trump administration is transphobic. I think that a lot of these rollback policies that we hear about are either taken out of context or oversimplified for the sake of an anti-Trump agenda. For example, Alyssa, I knew you were going to bring up the military ban. That's the one that the go-to one everyone goes to. Serving in the military is not a human right. No one is required to have like it's not a right to serve in the military. First of all, we can get into that a little bit more because I think that there's a very good reason as to why the Trump administration has barred transgender individuals. And as far as them rolling back these protections in school, that's what the media wants you to believe. They want you to believe that they have rolled back protections and now all of a sudden transgender students are able to be picked on or bullied in schools, when that is not the case. All that he did was remove an Obama era policy that basically forced schools to allow transgender individuals to use the bathroom of their choice. I personally don't think this needs to be something the federal government is involved in. I think it's much better being left up to the states as it is now. So plenty of states are still enforcing this bathroom policy. I'm sure in California, for example, transgender people can use whichever bathroom they please, but I don't think that should be a federal government enforcement. And lastly, I think that if we look at some other things the Trump administration has done, it actually shows that he is in support of LGBT people, because Trump is one of those people that I believe kind of like owns, if he doesn't like something, he's going to tell us. And I don't think that he's going to why try to hide this idea? Like, why try to hide his transphobia behind all these policies and initiatives that he's enacting to actually help LGBT people? For example, Alyssa, I'm sure you've heard of the, let me try to find it right here. So when the Trump administration launches a global effort to end criminalization of homosexuality, I'm sure you have heard of that, correct?
Oh yeah, I definitely saw that with much skepticism, but sure.
Right, so let's start with the military thing.
Yeah, I have something about the military I'd like to bring up if that's cool.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but 80% of jobs in the military are actually non-combat. This includes tech jobs like a multimedia illustrator, cryptologic linguist, civilian jobs like marketing, program management, engineering jobs like construction engineer, watercraft engineer, environmental scientist, lab specialists, cyber computer repair, IT specialists. These are all jobs that transgender individuals, transgender Americans could have that are in non-combat positions. In addition, I don't know if you know this, but the military is the country's largest single employer of transgender people. As a result, thousands of transgender people would lose access to employment and healthcare with this military ban.
If I could just cut in really quickly, I have said this from day one because I actually did a video on this. I disagree with the notion or the idea that once this policy goes through, transgender individuals should be removed from the military. I do think that the policy, when it's enacted, should halt new transgender people entering the military, which we'll get into that in a second.
When it's non-combat, if it's non-combat positions, you're purposely setting up a way.
It's not just about whether it's
transgender and Americans away from access to employment and healthcare.
It's not just
the largest
right. Which healthcare is the big.
All right,
I don't think
let's keep it one at a time. We'll interject when we can. But do you have something to say, Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious that Hunter is, I'm sure he's going to bring up the point about not wanting to pay for people's surgeries, but exactly, I don't understand why Republicans have why should I have to pay for soldiers with erectile dysfunction? But okay.
Right. That's a common argument. But I mean, let's look at how much money it costs, first of all, to undergo sex changes. Second of all, one of the requirements for serving in the military, whether it's combat or not, is good health. And if we look at statistics, the trans suicide rate.
We weren't talking about combat, but okay.
Right. Well, you said it's not everyone serving in the military is in combat, correct?
Right.
But still, one of the requirements for serving in the military is good health. Is that also correct?
I assume so.
So if the trans suicide rate is at 41% versus a 4.6% in the general public, and if we know that transgender individuals have a 55% of trans people suffer from high anxiety, according to studies done from 2005 and 2010. We know that they are not the most mentally stable people.
Why do you think they suffer from that? Why do you think they kill themselves? Or why do you think they suffer from anxiety? Probably because they're getting kicked out of everything, and because of people
they're
like
not being kicked out of.
Let's let Hunter finish his point, and then we can rebut after that.
Well, I can rebut now. They're not being kicked out of everything. That's just you're oversimplifying it and trying to blow the issue out of proportion. Again, the military is not a human right. They are not required to let anyone serve. And back to what I was saying as far as the good health goes, we also know that transgender individuals have a documented mental illness called gender dysphoria. And even if you don't agree with me on that, in order to even undergo a sex change, several well-documented cases of gender dysphoria are required to undergo a sex change. Not to mention, hormone replacement therapy can lead to heart failure, which is another medical problem that the military and the Pentagon has to take on, and strenuous exercise cannot begin until 6 to 8 weeks after the first sex change surgery. So do we really think the military, which is building a fighting force to protect our country, whether they're in combat or not, do you really think the military should be housing and paying for people getting sex change operations? That just doesn't seem like the place. It doesn't seem like a good environment for transgender people to begin with.
Well, as you brought up earlier about gender dysphoria, the quote unquote cure for that is transition. I mean, that is.
And I've supported that. Right. I've supported that in the past. Yes.
And so them having access to serve our country, because maybe they want to serve our country, will give them access to that transition. And you know what? I could totally get behind you if you were like, you know what, this is fine. But at the same time, you're not going to say anything against people, like I said, like Jeff Sessions, basically saying like, okay, we're going to do the military ban, but also if you want to go in and get a job anywhere else, at a restaurant, at a desk job, whatever, that employer can say, yeah, I don't want to hire you because you're trans. So
right, and I have not.
So you don't see how there's several things in place. There's several obstacles in place to keep transgender individuals and Americans from being able to access healthcare and employment. And you're like trying to fight it at every single turn. You're not giving them any outlet.
I am not trying to fight it every
I heard you say nothing. I watched your videos and I saw your any of your videos that are LGBTQ, like for the whole thing with Sessions, you were like, oh, it's a memo. It might not even happen. Well, guess what? It happened. So yeah.
Did it pass?
Yeah.
When?
I don't have the exact date. I can find it for you. I have a whole 2 pages of sources here that I'm going to post up on a link and give you after this if you want to post it up for your people.
Okay, sure. It was to my understanding that it was just a memo that was obtained. I hadn't even heard any further.
Well, discrimination law policy has been reversed. That is now a thing. People can say, hi, I'm not going to employ you because you're trans, and that's legal.
Right. And I'm sure that fell under religious freedom stuff, right?
Yeah, but that's not.
Which listen, here's the thing. I agree that I think that religious people, when it comes to LGBT stuff, is stupid. I think that it's if I owned a business and I had held strict Christian beliefs, I would never be opposed to employing transgender individuals because I disagreed with their lifestyle. I don't think that's right. However, this comes down to a debate on private companies and what these private companies are allowed to do. So someone might say, listen, I'm Christian. I own this company. I want to have the freedom to choose who I employ for whatever reason. And you might not agree with that. I don't agree with it. But I still think that in America, private businesses have the freedom to employ who they want. And I think that when you paint this with a big, broad brush, as if, oh, this is just signs that trans people are just steps away from a transgender holocaust or whatever, all these exaggerations or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, their life expectancy is 36. That's half suicide, but half because they just get murdered and nobody cares about it. But, whatever.
Right. I'm sure nobody cares about the transgender people. Exactly.
That's why there's gigantic not anyone that follows you.
That's why the minute
you put out.
Okay, well, it's not my job to go out and shill for transgender people. That's your job, Alyssa. And second of all,
it's only my job because I have to, because of people like you.
Right. So as far as the transgender military thing, just to get back to what we were originally discussing, I think that it makes perfect sense that the military should not have to pay for transgender sex change operations. I think that if we try to separate the emotion from the situation, if you try to pull the emotion out of this a little bit, look at from a clearly factual basis, Transgender
Right.
people
Well,
in the
when you pull
military
emotion out,
is
people die. So okay.
All right, let's let him finish his point before you jump in, please.
transgender people in the military is extremely expensive on the military. Personally, I agree with Trump's initiative because I don't think that transgender people that the military is a good place for transgender people to be receiving hormones and surgery, which we can talk about the effects that the surgery has, but on top of that, there's therapy, there's hormones, there's a big process, all of which deter them from their best performance in the military, no matter what their job is, whether it's combative or not.
Do you have a rebuttal for that, Alyssa?
I disagree. That's all. I just disagree. And I have, like I said, plenty of sources to back it up. So.
Okay, let's discuss a question that I think is on all of our minds right now. It's sort of the crux of this whole debate. Hunter has been criticized for making transphobic comments in his videos. Alyssa, do you truly believe that Hunter is transphobic? And if so, please substantiate that with some evidence, please.
Yep, 100%. Well, in order to earn my degree in communications with a minor in political rhetoric and a long list of other things, I actually had to write a mini dissertation on the relation of language and power to humor. And I don't know if you know this. This is actually from a language and power textbook by Paul Simpson and Andrea Marr. There's an undeniable connection between hatred and humor, especially when you have humor that is used with a disclaimer, like Hunter tries to do. This was actually from a study on humor and language and racism with like a humor on a KKK site. But it noticed that humor can provide a means for expressing hatred, and thus bigotry can bring its own pleasures to the bigot. So you say you don't hate gay people, but you enjoy making fun of them. There's also a huge component of outside.
I also make fun of white people. Go ahead.
Right. Well, there's a huge, then I'm going to get to that now with outsider versus insider humor. So there's outsider humor, which is jokes told by communities who are remote from the communities who form the butt of the joke. Then there's jokes that are told within particular social groups and may incorporate stereotypes of the group itself. So essentially, there's this idea that humor can be used in three ways. It can be used as a tool of oppression and ridicule by the powerful, aka Hunter being a white dude making fun of gay people. It can be used as a form of resistance by the less powerful, and it can even be used as an instrument to help galvanize social bonds among disenfranchised groups. So yes, you know, there can be, and I even have some examples here. I brought some examples for me that if Hunter would like to joke about the gay community or the trans community, he can certainly do that. But I think that he could do it in a way that doesn't further stereotype them. So here's a couple of jokes that I printed out that I brought along.
Politically correct jokes? Is this where we're headed?
No, this is just some of my favorite ones. So I'm going to hold this one up here. So this one says, when your non-binary friend is sad because they keep getting misgendered and they're patting their back and saying,
You're going to call this humor? You're going to call that a meme?
Hey, I thought it was no interruptions, but you know, that's okay.
That's true, Hunter. Give her a moment.
My apologies.
I, a trans lesbian married a bisexual. Does this make us a BLT?
It's just funny.
I'm going to vomit. I'm sorry.
This one is for my girls that like girls. Tried to shop online for bras, too distracted by boobs. Got a couple more here, a couple of my personal favorites. Straighteners aren't worth your money. I've been using one for 3 weeks and I'm still definitely a lesbian. Oh, this is one of my personal favorites, again, for the ladies. When you're talking to a girl and things start getting serious, she's cutting her nails. And my personal favorite trans joke of all time. I think you guys are really going to love this one. So it's got a little comic, and the guy at the top says, "What's going on? I can see right through you. My son told me he's transgender, so that makes me transparent." There's some jokes about the gay community that are hilarious. I think they're really funny. And you also don't have to dehumanize them in the process. And I also want to point out that Hunter can think, and I just have one more thing. I also want to point out that Hunter can think that, you know, he's not transphobic, and, you know, maybe he's not. And he can say that he's not responsible for his fans' reactions and whatever their actions are and their behaviors. And you're right, Hunter, you're not responsible. But I think that it says nothing that you know damn well who you're marketing to. You're marketing to people that are anti-LGBTQ, and you're reinforcing those stereotypes. It's the same thing that happens if you had a group of men all together and one of those men in the group was a rapist, and the other men started making a joke about rape, they're like, oh, it's just a joke. And to them, it's just a joke. But to the rapist standing in the circle, that's reaffirming. They're like, oh, they think it's funny, so it's not a big deal. So that's exactly what Hunter's doing. And he can say all day long that he's not transphobic, but he makes money and he makes his career off like marketing to a target audience that is extremely transphobic and anti-LGBTQ. And I've got over 6,000 comments and screenshots to prove it, just from how much of what his, how many of his fans have come onto my personal stuff and said things to me.
Okay. We can't necessarily blame people for the behavior of the fans. However, so the jury will strike that from the record. And before you respond, though, I would love for you to bring us some of the jokes that Hunter. All right, go ahead, Hunter.
I want to respond to some of that first because that was a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so first of all, Alyssa, at the beginning of your argument where you tried to clinically diagnose me like a therapist, I would just say, listen, it's possible that some people, sure, they'll use humor to mask hatred or whatever. Some people do that. I am not one of those people.
Right.
I own what I believe. All right. I have no problem telling you I don't like feminists. So why would I try to pussyfoot around the fact that, around saying that I don't like transgender people? It doesn't make any sense.
An audience, and none of your videos would get monetized. That's why.
My videos already don't get monetized.
Exactly.
Second of all, have you ever watched The Office?
No, I don't really watch The Office. I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay, so I was going to use this as an example. I was kind of assuming you'd seen it. In The Office, there's a part where this guy walks in, he has a big Adam's apple, and one of the main characters says, he's like, hey, pull your shirt up. You look like a transvestite. So what would you say about that show? Is that masking hate? Does that mean okay, but does that, I'm asking you in that.
Yes, I've seen several things that break down the transphobia within the office. That's not something I was prepared to talk about, but I can certainly get your sources.
Okay, so what this is more of an attempt at essentially destroying humor and ruining fun. People are allowed to make jokes. People are allowed to make comments. People are allowed to make little jabs and jokes at people for whatever they feel necessary. Sure, not all of them are going to be appropriate, and certain jokes are going to have pushback. But by your logic, then is every time that a stand-up comedian makes an offensive joke, you must think stand-up comedians are absolute monsters.
No, I love stand-up comedians. One of my favorites that really kind of portrays this, like being able to make fun of minority communities. Hannah Gadsby. She is a great example. If you watch any of her stuff,
I know who you're referring to. I have not actually gotten a chance to watch her, but
I definitely recommend it. And
do you think every
problem with people joking, like the way, like the reason why I have no problem with people making white boy jokes over transgender jokes is because white boys are not oppressed. White boys are not dealing with any real discrimination, any tangible things that are holding them back right now. And you know what? The second the transgender community gets there and the LGBT community gets there, then you joke about them all you want. Sure thing.
Right. Which we've talked about this earlier, but isn't part of being equal and being treated like an equal society being able to be joked about?
Yeah, you're right. And I've already given you examples of how you can joke about
those jokes were politically correct, and you know what? You're more.
I thought they were hilarious, and I'm sure plenty of people think they were.
Okay, but
all right, let's take a quick moment. Let's take a quick moment to talk for a second. Okay, Alyssa, you brought up several of Hunter's jokes that you think are not appropriate. Why don't you bring up? Why don't you?
All right.
Okay, since Hunter has too much power to joke about trans people, why don't you present the jokes that he is allowed to say as a cisgendered white person? Show us the list of jokes that he would be allowed to say that you would consider to be funny but acceptable from someone of his demographic.
All the stuff I held up earlier.
No, right? No. Tell us the jokes. Tell us the jokes that Hunter is allowed to say.
That's the stuff that I just.
Well, no. In other words, make us laugh with a joke that Hunter is allowed to say. Give us something that is politically correct enough.
I think we should go back to what we were saying before, because Alyssa, I get what you're saying. You've given me a list of jokes which I am now permitted to say. Which, again, I think that this is just such a dangerous path, because the minute you tell people that you can't joke about things, that is a violation of free speech.
Look, I'm not saying that you can't. You can do it, but I can call you out.
But you actually have the audacity. but you actually have the audacity to claim that because I make edgy jokes, which that's part of what my channel brand is. I don't just make edgy jokes about LGBT people either. I would understand your logic more if every joke I ever made was at the expense of a trans person. I make jokes about everybody. I've made jokes about Asian people. I've made jokes about white people. I've made jokes about women. I make jokes about everyone because you know what? I'm good at offensive humor. I know what kind of offends people.
That's something to be very proud of. I'm glad you're proud of that.
But I am proud of it because you know what? Shock humor. Okay, you can repeat trash or you can let me talk, but shock humor is extremely important. People need to stop being so pussified. People need to stop being so scared of hearing a minimal little joke, a little offensive comment here and there. You know what? I think it's good for people to hear offensive jokes because it toughens them up a bit. And to address, again, to get back to the actual meat of your point, I am not transphobic because I make jokes. By that logic, everyone who's ever made a joke about something offensive or about someone that you deem a oppressed minority is now suddenly a monster or a bigot or a bad person. And as I mentioned in my video response to you, I have talked about countless times, I have defended the LGBT community.
Oh God, here we go.
Yes, I have defended the LGBT community countless. So wait, let me get this straight. You can't make any jokes about trans people, right? But then if you talk about transgender people being oppressed under Islam, now I'm Islamophobic?
I mean, we could pull up the video of you dressed like a Muslim if you want.
Oh, that video was great. That was a super funny video. Yeah. And you know what? The only reason I was forced to take it down is because I actually was kind of afraid YouTube was going to have repercussions. It had nothing to do with me. Because I know you tried to imply that I was hiding something. That video has already been re-uploaded and seen by hundreds of thousands of people. So no big deal there. As far as my videos where I discuss the horrors that the LGBT community experience under Islam, I just want to know how that suddenly makes me Islamophobic, because you're putting me in a box here where I'm unable to win. You say, if you make jokes about trans people, even though that's treating them as equals, I'm transphobic. So I should rather turn to your list of, quite honestly, the boringest jokes I've probably ever heard in my entire life instead. Or if I actually say, no, hold up, Alyssa, I've talked about real oppression that the LGBT people have experienced. I've made videos, some of which have almost millions of views. You're saying, oh, well, that's just Islamophobia.
Well, so how? Because you're not making those videos for that. You're making those videos because, again, you know your target audience, and you know your audience, it's going to feed their Islamophobia and their hatred towards those people. And I would I would buy that you.
That's not true. That, like, you're just
LGBTQ plus rights. I would buy it if you were fighting just as hard as you do about the facts with Islam, if you were doing that here with the facts here. But you're not. You're not. It's just jokes here. It seems like you only care about LGBTQ in the sense of like what's going on over there.
No, actually, I care about LGBT people.
I've never seen it at all.
I care about talking about real oppression that LGBT people are experiencing.
No. Don't gaslight. Don't sit here and gaslight. This is a real problem and this isn't. People are dying in this country. People are losing access to healthcare. People are becoming homeless because of this. Just because it's not as bad here as it is in other countries doesn't make it just go away and not be a tangible.
Listen, I agree that there are certainly still issues and things that the LGBT community needs to overcome. I do feel that they have equal rights in this society. And I also think that if I'm going to choose what I want to talk about, I'm going to defend the LGBT people who are being murdered and massacred every single day in Islamic countries.
But not the ones.
I know. I'm aware that there are.
But you won't defend them. You'll just joke about them.
No. I'll defend them. Absolutely.
Where?
Right now. Right now. Yes.
Never before you called you out on it?
I absolutely denounce LGBT people being killed in this country. That is horrible. Nor do I support it.
All right.
But for you to claim that me making jokes, me making like a bunch of my videos, a lot of them actually.
I'm just saying, you know who you're appealing to. You know it deep down, and you continue to do it. That's all I'm saying.
Alyssa, that's bullshit. You're like, oh, you know who you're appealing to. Oh, you know who you're appealing to because your audience.
I've got thousands of comments. I've got
right. Because a couple. Okay, 6,000 out of 620,000 is a minuscule percentage.
That's
the mass majority. And plus, you know what? I would ask you this: if you want to claim that my audience reflects who I am as a person, which it does not.
No, I'm just saying they reflect The
Well,
people
hold on, let me
we're trying
finish.
to appeal to.
What about the countless LGBT people and gay people who follow and support me?
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's some that do, but I'm sure for every gay person that supports you, there's at least 20 that don't or more.
Plus,
So-
I would ask that a lot of these videos that you point to, you're so hung up on my jokes. I feel like you never actually listen to my overall points I'm trying to make.
Am I allowed to say a couple of the jokes right now? Can I?
Sure, go for it. I'm sure they're fucking hilarious.
No, in mine, he made a joke about the reference to the video about me, crazy liberal chick calls me out. He literally made a joke about conversion therapy.
I made a joke, literally.
But still, conversion therapy. People are getting killed and shot.
Oh my God.
Gay.
And yet,
he referred to transition as a chop and stitch. He said, you might think I sound just as crazy as the guy who wants his dick chopped off. Wow, that's really
again, all jokes, but see, that video
there really isn't any difference between a gay person and a normal person, except the gay person is going to hell. I don't hate gay people.
And then, hold up.
I don't hate
you know what?
people.
You know what?
I
No. I demand a response. I get a rebuttal right here. No. I get a rebuttal.
All right, decorum, delegates, decorum. Let's cool it off. Let's cool it off just a little bit.
Please let me respond.
Hunter, go.
You referencing that joke, Alyssa, come on. Don't be so predictable. You're literally proving my point. In that video, I'm going to defend myself because this is going to be on my channel most likely. In that video, I made a joke about gay people, and then I made a joke very similarly about white people. And the point was to show that more people are going to get triggered over the gay joke than the white person joke, which thank you for proving my point. Secondly, the dick chopped off joke. You're just proving my point even more. You're so hung up on the jokes I make, you overlook the broader point I'm actually trying to convey. I throw in jokes because I like to be edgy, I like shock humor, and honestly, the jokes in my videos I find hilarious. Just like you find those politically correct, boring jokes funny, I find the edgy jokes funny. However, the overall point in that one video was about how I was talking about how the Trump administration isn't against transgender people, just like what we're debating. I was talking about how the media exploits transgender suffering to prop up their agenda against Donald Trump. All right. I'm against LGBT suffering, and I'm against the media exploiting them. Far too often you look at these little jokes and you say, oh, he makes jokes, so he must be transphobic. Yet you overlook my actual points. If you judge people by the jokes they make over the actual points they make, I'm sorry, that's extremely backwards logic.
No, it's hard to take your point seriously when your jokes are absolutely disgusting. And the reason that the joke about the white guy was funny and the trans one or the gay one wasn't is, again, because if we joke about white people, it's not going to make white people more likely to not get access to healthcare. It's not going to take white men.
And neither are my transgender jokes.
Language shapes society, and society shapes language. It is a cycle, and those in power get control of the language, and people
Am I in power?
You've got a huge audience, and who's in power right now? 80-90% of positions of power are white males.
So go vote for someone else.
Right. Okay, of course I can go vote for somebody else, but you're not understanding that those jokes against minority communities hold more harm than the jokes against people who are in power.
I'm just shocked at how racist you are, first of all, to assume because all these white men are in power, you just automatically assume they're white men, so they must be evil enemies of transgender people.
No, I don't assume anything. I just know my history. That's all. But you know.
All right, I think we've come to a nice little head here. Why don't we give 1 minute to each of you just to wrap up this one point, and then we're going to go on to some other topics. How about that? Alyssa, you start.
I'd like to hit Hunter back with one of the quotes from his videos, Dear Liberals, Stop Brainwashing Kids. If you can only further your agenda by brainwashing impressionable children, then your agenda is most likely stupid. Considering Hunter's base, 95% of them are under 18, you should take your own advice on that. No, it is true. It is true.
Not true. Literally, factually and objectively untrue.
If you've got proof of that, then show me.
Sure. Sure. All right. No, okay. I can do this. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull it up right now. So, Alyssa, I know you've only been in the YouTube game for a little while, but you know that you can actually view your audience? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Right. So, my largest demographic, 40.3%, which can be seen right here, is 18 through 24-year-olds. My second largest demographic is 25 through 34-year-olds. So don't come at me with some of that. That is such cheap. Like, you call me leafy. That's like such a classic leafy tactic. You're like, oh, your fan base is all a bunch of kids. That's it. Sorry, I'm done.
Whatever.
All right.
Well,
All right, Hunter, do you want to wrap this up for now? We'll
16.
I would like to give my closing point for this segment as well. Yeah, I just want to make it very clear that my jokes do not dictate who I am as a human being. I don't think that my I don't think that my jokes dictate that I am a transphobic person, especially if you look at my track record. If you look at how from the very start I've said I don't hate trans people and that transgender people deserve human rights. From the very start I've said that for a lot of transgender people, sex change operation is good and necessary for them. I've made countless videos defending LGBT people against the oppression and the horrors they experience under Islam, and I have raised awareness of this to hundreds of thousands of people. And quite honestly, I do feel that I've done more for the LGBT community than you, Alyssa.
All right.
That's hilarious. No, I have a response to that.
Because you get on here and you get up on your high horse and you shill for a bunch of people.
All right.
But then when push comes to shove, you would rather me be quiet about the horrors the LGBT people face under Islam than dare to speak about it because you don't want me to look Islamophobic.
You're not a hypocrite and talk about both equally. That's what I want to see.
Right.
Because you can't sit here and talk all day long about what's going on with LGBTQ discrimination or deaths or anything that's going on with Islam, but you can't say anything but joke about the people that are suffering here.
I don't joke. I joke about LGBT people, but I don't joke about people suffering.
Seriously. Right. And the fact that you think you've done more for the LGBTQ community than me is laughable. And you know what? Maybe I haven't had as much time to go out and do more things or make more videos because I actually have to work for a living, unlike some people, Hunter.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next. We're gonna move on to the next topic. If our audience is watching, you can blast the comment section. If you think this virulent transphobe Hunter Avallone is, if he's seen the light and he supports trans LGBT rights, make sure you blast the comment section and let's hear what you have to say. Okay, speaking of gaslighting, speaking of Trump, we're gonna get on to our next topic: Nazis. Okay, the original meaning of the word Nazi is a member. This one's going to Hunter, by the way. The original meaning of the word Nazi is a member of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The original political strategy was focused on anti-big business, anti-bourgeois, and anti-capitalist rhetoric. Has the meaning of the word Nazi changed from its original meaning, and what does that have? How does that impact us today in modern America?
Absolutely. By that definition, the left looks a lot more like Nazis than the right does. I would say that the term that me and Alyssa are debating on is probably, and I could be wrong here, but I believe it's neo-Nazi, which are people that still hold bigoted, violent ideas that are similar to Nazi rhetoric. And to that, I would just say, because I believe we're on a topic of, is it okay to punch a Nazi, correct?
Yeah, we're going to get there, but let's define what a Nazi is in the first place so we know who to punch.
So I would say that what me and Alyssa are debating here is, I wasn't going to make a big deal about it because it's kind of just a technicality, but it's neo-Nazis, not actual Nazis. I don't really think there's many Nazis still alive today.
Okay. Alyssa, how would you define Nazi in modern America?
Well, I would define it as anybody who wants to try to restrict rights to minority groups or oppressed groups to the point of them either restricting by either restricting rights or taking their life away, or basically looking at these people as something that's less than human, or that, if you're white, that is you want the white ethno state, you're the most powerful, you're better than other people.
Okay, so according to the Hunter, let's go back to you. According to the original meaning of the word Nazi, and of course we can also add in the word neo-Nazi, like you guys have been talking about. Would you identify Trump as a Nazi? Please defend your position.
Absolutely not. Not even slightly. No. He has been. I mean, he's overwhelmingly. I think that if Donald Trump was a Nazi, we would know, and that we would see far more. I don't even know how to get into that because that's just so far from reality. Absolutely not. Donald Trump has done so much to help the American people and to help LGBT people and minority groups. No, not at all.
Okay, Alyssa, do you believe Donald Trump is a Nazi?
I would not call him a Nazi, but I would say that it is alarming to me the similarities between him and Hitler. Just to specify on that, the idea of us putting the kids in cages, that to me, that is, if you look at the
Which happened under Obama also.
And did I ever support it under Obama? Did you ever see me talking about it? No, you didn't. So, and again, it was different. Obama didn't separate families at the border. The people who came over, it was unaccompanied minors. But let me
which Trump is the sorry.
Which let me get back to my point. I would definitely say that that kids being put in cages is a step towards concentration camps. If you look at the definition of that, it does include taking some type of different group and putting them in a situation like what's been done. And again, we have to remember that anything that happened as far as Nazi Germany, this didn't happen overnight. People didn't just wake up one morning and they started rounding up Jews. It was a slow and steady process that started initially with the us versus them rhetoric. And if we're going to talk us versus them rhetoric, I have 100% seen that from Donald Trump since the beginning and up until today.
Hunter, would you like to respond?
Not really. I'd like to get into the punch Nazis debate.
All right, Alyssa, let's say we identify Nazis on the street. Do you think it's okay to punch a Nazi?
Look, am I going to punch a Nazi? Me personally, no. I'm going to be honest. I'm 5'1", I'm 100 pounds. I'm not going to cause any damage to anybody. But if anyone else wanted to, I would not stop them. And the reason why is because I'm a huge believer in Karl Popper's philosophy on this. He is regarded as one of the 20th century's greatest philosophers of science. And he talks about the paradox of tolerance. And he asks, should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance? The thing is that when we extend tolerance to those who are openly intolerant, the tolerant ones end up being destroyed, and so does tolerance along with them. So any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside the law. And as far as the whole freedom of speech thing is, we have freedom of speech, we do, but there's also things within that. There is exceptions. For instance, like you can't run into a building and yell fire. Why not? Because it could cause damage and destruction. So until I see Hunter vehemently advocating for that, then, because that's the whole reason why I think it should not be covered under freedom of speech, because this is something that can lead to damage, destruction, and ultimately loss of life. So yes, I don't think that should be included in freedom of speech.
So by your definition of Nazi or neo-Nazi, is Hunter a Nazi or a neo-Nazi, and should other people who are against Nazis, should they punch him when they see him?
I would not label Hunter as a Nazi. I would more so label him on the alt-right. Under that label, that's just a far right extremist group. And I find that, extremely tangible. Like I was saying earlier, again, you don't have to strike it from it, because you said it earlier, Brett. I'm not trying to say that he's responsible for the behaviors and actions of the people that follow him. But I think that there is some type of correlation between the dialogue and the rhetoric that's out there and the fact that white supremacists and other far right groups, they committed the majority of extremist related murders in 2017. 2/3 of terror attacks in the US were carried out by right-wing extremists also in 2017. Last year was the 4th deadliest year for extremist killings since 1970. 2018 also saw the highest percentage of right-wing extremist-related killings since 2012. And all US extremist killings in 2018 had links to right-wing extremism. So I definitely think that there is some correlation there between the rhetoric that that Hunter puts out and that other people who are probably a lot worse, like Richard Spencer, the rhetoric that they put out. There's definitely a correlation between that and the fact that we've seen an uptick in these type of hate crimes.
Hunter, do you want to respond to that? She made the point that the only thing that is that you should not have to tolerate is intolerance. It seems like a little bit of a logical misstep to me, but I'd like to get your opinion about tolerating the intolerant.
Right. So this kind of goes back to what we talked about when we first had our discussion at Politicon, Alyssa. I think that the idea that it's okay to punch a Nazi is a dangerous one solely because it's very difficult to define what a Nazi is, especially at the rate that the left is going. And I use these same examples in my video. They have branded Ben Shapiro as a Nazi, despite him being an Orthodox Jew. They have branded Trump supporters as a Nazi. And even you yourself have called Tomi Lahren a Nazi Barbie. You have labeled her a Nazi, and Tomi Lahren is, I think we can all agree, is not a Nazi. that ideology is dangerous because it gives you the freedom to brand whomever you please or whoever you disagree with as a Nazi, and then gives you some baseless justification in physically assaulting them. I do not think that physical assault, I do not think that bad ideas warrant a physical response. And I kind of agree with your takes when it comes to the free speech thing. Listen, trying to figure out how to word this. Incitement of violence is not protected under free speech. Okay? So, yes, if someone was going up there and saying, let's go kill these people, whatever, and spewing just disgusting, terrible,
Which
hateful
they did
things.
at Charlottesville.
Of course, yes. And many of the people there I adamantly disagree with and don't like.
Trump said they were fine, though.
Well, that's a debate for another time, but I'm
just
happy to
making
get
sure
it.
you know.
Well, Trump said there were good people on both sides, and in which case that's objectively true because that is objectively true because not everyone who was attending was part of a violent radical Antifa group, and not everyone who was attending was part of a violent radical right-wing group. Some people who attended that simply didn't want the statue removed. That is that's an objectifiable fact. But back to what I was saying, clear and present danger is what warrants a violent response, like a self-defense. If you hear someone come up and say something that you don't like about trans people, even if it's hateful, even if it's saying that trans people are subhuman or garbage or don't deserve rights or something just disgusting that we both heavily disagree with, it does not warrant a violent response.
All right,
it does not warrant a physical response.
Okay. Our calls, all right, this one goes to Alyssa. Our calls to punch Nazis, an example of inciting violence and also protected under the First Amendment.
No, I don't. Again, I don't think that like Hunter wants to put it as this sweeping brush. I'm not saying it's anybody who can be a Nazi. I'm only talking about the specific definition, and I'm not in charge.
No, you're not. You've done it in the past.
I asked something very specific. I asked something very specific here. Are the calls to punch Nazis an example of inciting violence and therefore not protected under the First Amendment?
No, I don't think so.
So yes, they are protected under the First Amendment, and punching Nazis are not calls to violence, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So how does that make any sense?
I don't understand how you guys want to equate people reacting violently because their life is on the line with people reacting violently just because they want to kill somebody they hate. How is that similar?
Well, acting violently because their life is on the line, that would imply clear and present danger, in which case I would be on that person's side. You, however, are advocating for physically assaulting people who hold ideals that you disagree with, and in many instances are wrong and are disgusting and are hateful. So obviously if someone runs at you with a knife and you punch them, that's clear and present danger. That is a self-defense, and that's completely permissible, correct?
Right.
So where does your idea that we should punch Nazis fall into all this?
I really don't know how to explain this more clear. If you guys want to just let Nazis talk about whatever, get greater, and then by the time we get to the point where it's like a real genocide, be like, oh whoops, oh well. Like I don't know what you're trying to get.
Literally, Alyssa, if somebody speaks, hate speech, first of all, is a super tricky one, and many people have been in deep trouble for hate speech. Second of all, the minute that hate speech becomes violent actions, you can look at the time that couple pulled up to that black boy's birthday party and threatened to kill him. That went from being hate speech to hateful actions. They're going to jail for a long, long time. So I don't see why you think that just allowing Nazis to speak about their ideas, no matter how bad those ideas are, which we both heavily disagree with, would somehow lead to mass genocide. That's a slippery slope fallacy. And again, you are being over the top dramatic with this. I think that what
I'm not being over the top dramatic. I gave you all the statistics. I mean, I just told you that in the last 2 years, the amount of far right killings, sure, it hasn't been a genocide. Yeah, it's not been genocide yet. Of course not. But the fact that it's slowly increasing, to me, I mean, the 11 people that died at the synagogue, that's 11 too many. Does that not matter?
Oh, that was absolutely
no. That matter. Because the fact that these people are allowed to have free speech and be reaffirmed in their biases, in their disgusting thinking, it encourages these other people to act out. And that's not me just making it up and exaggerating. I just told you that white supremacists and far-right groups carried out the majority of extremist-related murders for the last 2 years. Kind of ironic that it also happened to be the last 2 years that Trump's been in office and his rhetoric's been pumping around, but, I guess, whatever.
Okay,
I wouldn't mind a source for those statistics, by the way.
Sure.
Those seem
like
pretty
I told you guys, I have.
Where did those statistics come from? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, sure. Let me scroll down. Like I said, I'm posting this all on. I have like a literary portfolio, and I have like 3 pages that I'm going to put on here.
Sure.
Let's see.
I'm just curious where that came from. I don't like trying to figure out how to word this.
Well, and while I'm looking for these, you should also know that, if you're really for the protection of freedom of speech, I still have not heard you say anything or ever advocated against all the times last year that Trump has tried to basically make protesting illegal.
I know, again, I know what you're referencing. It was like one source, which I didn't even have a chance to read.
No, I have like 5 different sources for that.
Well, I didn't even have a chance to read that article. And I mean, obviously I'm against that. It's like what I said at the Politicon debate, that I'm not going to get up here and tell you that I agree with everything Trump's ever done or said, because I absolutely don't.
But you support him when he does these things.
I support most of his policies, but I do not support everything. It
just seems like things that are a deal breaker with me, things that totally discredit me as like trying to be a journalist and everything else, they're totally fine for him to do. Or at least it's not enough for you to lose support of him, but it's enough to discredit me. That's what I'm saying. It just seems really freaking hypocritical, but whatever.
I just think you need to examine yourself and see how dangerous your thought process is when you say,
no, I don't see anything dangerous with wanting equality and justice for all, Hunter. Don't see anything dangerous about that.
Let me finish and stop with the... Listen, I think it's dangerous when you are saying that we can't allow people to converse about their ideas.
That's not what I'm saying.
When you're saying, you said if we let people talk about their ideas, they're discussing Nazi ideas.
You did say that.
Yes.
You did say that.
Specify Nazi ideas. Specify Nazi ideas, not any ideas, not all ideas.
I'm sorry. I thought I made that clear.
Dangerous ideas.
I'm sorry. I thought that was clear in the context of the debate. You said, I think it's very dangerous to say that we should not allow people to converse about their hateful Nazi ideas. And here's why. I gave you this example last time, and I'll give it to you again for everyone watching this stream as well. When you put bad ideas in front of good people, those bad ideas are rejected. We have seen this countless times. When I gave you that example with the BBC was going to give a show to some guy who was really racist. They gave him a show and it destroyed his following, because the more people that you have this tendency to believe that people are all closeted, evil Nazis who just need to hear some bad shit and all of a sudden they're going to become a Nazi. That's not the case. And free speech protects Nazis. Yes, free speech protects even Nazis, and it protects their right to be able to speak openly about their ideas. However, when it becomes an incitement of violence, it is no longer protected, which is why I would argue that, yes, inciting violence, even against Nazis, is also not protected.
That brings me to another question, which is Hunter just answered it. Is that should Nazis have the right to have free speech? What do you think, Alyssa? Should we ban the speech of self-avowed Nazis?
I just don't think that you have a right that's hate speech. I just don't think that that we should give these people the right.
Okay. What's hate speech?
Jesus Christ, Hunter.
What's hate speech?
Just anything. I feel like it is speech that is purposely made to discriminate and to cause harm to any specific group of people.
Okay, so would you consider my transgender jokes to be hate speech?
I guess, I probably would, because I mean.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. So let me ask you this now. What about the 620,000 people that subscribe to me? Let's say half of them, all right? 300,000 people who follow me, they don't think that's hate speech. So now what? Are we going to stifle out my right to this said hate speech because you don't like it, or are we going to let me continue to make these jokes and continue saying this hate speech, which is not hate speech, because a bunch of other people don't feel it's hate speech? This is why you can't be so black and white in this.
I'm not being black and white. I don't know why
you're saying that hate speech should,
where me saying Nazis are bad is like a controversial thing.
It's not. It's not a controversial thing. Again, you're oversimplifying for the sake of your agenda.
No,
listen to me.
Okay. All right. Let's just argue for a second that Hunter is guilty of hate speech. What should his punishment be for hate speech and the like for other folks who engage in this kind of speech that we can say objectively is hate speech? What should his punishment be?
There is no objectable hate speech.
There doesn't be a punishment, but you shouldn't have a platform. You should not have a platform with amount of, you say you have no power, but having over 500,000 subs is a little bit of an influence. It is. So I don't think that you should have that influence. Again,
so you think that people that say things that you deem as hate speech should be deplatformed?
No, not that I deem. Again, we could set up something for it. I don't know. I'm not saying that.
This is why, Alyssa. This is what I'm, Alyssa. This is what I'm trying to help you understand. Is that hate speech is, you cannot define it, because one thing you consider hate speech, the other guy doesn't consider hate speech, and also hate speech is protected under the First Amendment. If I want to get up and talk to my friends about how much I hate anyone all day, every day, that is completely within my right. It only becomes a problem when it becomes an incitement or it becomes an action.
All right.
So I'm again, you talk about punching Nazis. You can't define a Nazi. You talk about stifling out free.
We just did that at the beginning of this.
Maybe you personally can define a Nazi, but the term Nazi is used as a broad brush to paint a bunch of different people. That's like saying we should punish everyone who's a racist. Yet the left will call one person a racist, one person's not a racist, this person's racist, blah, 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 blah. You can't call someone a Nazi and be justified in punching them. That doesn't make any sense, and it's a violation of their right. And it makes you could literally be charged for assault. And secondly, you cannot say that people who have hate speech should be deplatformed, because you cannot define hate speech. This is why I'm trying to help you understand why these ideas not only are dangerous and stifle out free speech and stifle out the ability for people to be exposed to bad ideas so that they can reject them, but it's bad because it just doesn't make any sense.
Right, but you don't care about the few people who won't reject them and then end up walking into a synagogue and killing 11 people.
That is untrue. You're making complete false equivalencies right now.
No, I'm not.
The synagogue shooting.
It's funny because it seems like to me all of your opinions and the whole belief system that you hold is only there because all of these issues will never affect you, Hunter. They will never affect you.
That's just not true. That is completely untrue. All right, what about the people that are like, come on, it's just no. Listen, when it comes to the synagogue shooting, it was an absolutely awful thing. But taking away people's freedom of speech is not going to stop those things from happening. You are trying to take away people's free speech.
All right,
I'm just trying to make Nazis bad again. That's all. I can't feel like
Nazis.
This is controversial.
All right. It's not controversial that Nazis are bad. Everyone agrees that Nazis are bad. It's what we should.
Their freedom of speech.
Yes, I am defending their freedom of speech, just like I defend your freedom of speech, Alyssa.
Okay, I will defend yours, but I will not defend Nazis' freedom of speech. God, that's great.
Okay.
All right, I think
everybody. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
I think everybody agrees that the OG socialists are bad. Let's move on to a different topic. Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about the border wall. We're going to talk a little bit about immigration. All right. Trump, at an estimated $5 billion, the wall at the southern border has been criticized as an ego project for Donald Trump, and others see it as essential to our long-term security. Alyssa, are you for or against a border wall, and why?
I am 100% against the border wall. Why? Because I think it's a complete waste of money. Because there's been instances where, like Trump just last month, he visited a town in McAllen, Texas. That's a border town. That town, the Texas Border Coalition, the mayor of that town, who is not Democrat and left-leaning, it's a bipartisan, tries to be nonpartisan, tries to be on both sides. That mayor, they all sat down and they told President Trump that they didn't think the wall would make a difference. They even showed him, and I talked about this in one of my most recent videos, they showed him $300,000 of cash that they had apprehended, diamond encrusted and gold plated machine guns, pounds of methamphetamine and heroin, and all of these things were gotten at different ports. And they asked Trump, they said, hey, how is the wall going to change these drugs getting in at ports and under tunnels? Nobody had the answer, certainly not Trump. My solution is, do I want open borders? Absolutely not. All I want, and most of the left, because everybody will say it's open borders and it's 100% not. All we want is an immigration system that values humanity as much as it does effectiveness. So instead of taking those billions of dollars and investing into the wall, I think we could invest them more into our Border Patrol and our ICE agents. Why do I say that? Because our Border Patrol and our ICE agencies are some of the most corrupt agencies in the entire, and out of all of our government agencies to begin with. The amount of corruption as far as like them actually helping drugs and criminals get across the border, the amount of corruption and the fact that the border and ICE are the only two government agencies. In order to get on, you don't have to take a polygraph lie detector test. There's also several other things in the background check process that you don't have to do. And I also think in addition to putting that money into them, we could also put that money into hordes of legal professionals, social workers, lawyers, anything like that, people who can help process claims more efficiently. We could also put that into bigger and better ports of entry. So I think those are the three most important things that we could invest in right now, other than a wall, that would actually make a tangible difference for border security. One other thing is that, hold on, one other thing. I wanted to say one more thing. Shoot. Sorry. Yeah. I guess I thought I had one more thing, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I think if we put the money into that it would definitely make a much bigger difference than putting the money in the wall. The other thing was, the other thing was that that right now, that with the whole horde of migrants coming in last November or December, and then also now I know we're seeing an uptick too. I also just am kind of curious, like what would have happened, because obviously, yes, I'm aware that they threw rocks, but I'm really curious what would have happened. Like, would they have thrown rocks if they were not met with military defense? I 100% believe that if they were met with the hordes of legal professionals, the lawyers, everything else, if they were met with those people to help process their claims, that they wouldn't have thrown rocks at them. Absolutely 100% not. The only reason things are getting congested and crazy right now is because the Trump administration literally pushed through ruling that would get rid of or take away any possible outlet for asylum seekers to come into the country. It's always been, prior to the Trump administration, you had to seek asylum on American soil, but now Trump is making it to where you can only seek asylum at ports of entry, and then he's blocking off ports of entry and saying, like, we can only process a finite number each day. So he's purposely making it so people who are seeking asylum can't get into the country right now.
Well, first of all, if I could just really quickly say, it was to my understanding that the migrant caravan did have the ability to be processed for asylum. There was a place that they could apply outside of the border. And a
finite number, though. They were being turned away.
And also those migrants were not, a majority of them were economic migrants. They were seeking better jobs. They were not seeking asylum, which, again, I think that if you're seeking jobs in this country, that's fine. I just think that we should be honest about what it is. To address your original point about a mayor saying the wall would be ineffective, I would ask you to look at the countless surveys which were done that showed Border Patrol agents do support the wall. A Border Patrol chief recently said wall will most certainly help secure southern borders. Border agents support Trump's wall, according to a new survey from New York Times. And in San Diego, hundreds of customs and border protection agents echo that the fence is not secure and a wall is needed. So I trust Border Patrol agents personally more than I trust some mayor of some town. And also, even Obama's former Border Patrol chief is in support of the wall. I wanted to read you these statistics really quickly. This comes from Department of Homeland Security. And I actually want to make it really clear, Alyssa, because I think that we might get lucky here and find a little bit of common ground in this issue. Because I do not think that building a wall is going to solve all the problems. I actually agree with you that a lot of our issues are because of ports of entry. And I also think that more initiatives other than just a wall need to be taken. The only really big disagreement I have is I think that a wall on top of those initiatives is best. And this is why. These statistics come from Department of Homeland Security. In San Diego, there was a wall built in 1992, and illegal traffic dropped 92% over the past 23 years. In Yuma, built in 2005, illegal traffic dropped 95% over 9 years. Now, this article that I'm pulling it from, it does say, while it's hard to track changes in illegal traffic at the border, those claims do match with raw numbers on border apprehensions from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So if we look at statistics from other towns at a smaller scale that have put up walls, we do see illegal immigration fall. So how can you tell me that a wall is not entirely effective. I know that it won't solve every problem, but can we at least admit that maybe a wall, a physical barrier, would deter some illegal immigrants from entering the country?
No, I'm not for the wall. No. Sorry.
He didn't ask you whether you're for the wall. He asked you if it would help at all.
I don't think it would. I think it would hinder. Because the illegal immigrants that you said it was like it had like a 90% success rate or whatever. I think that the people that you're keeping out they're not criminals. They're people, again, just trying to come here and make a better life for themselves, which they should have every right to do, considering if you know
I agree.
The last 100 years of American intervention in Latin American countries, you would know that like 90% of the reason these people are leaving their countries anyway is because we've damaged and destructed them to hell. But okay.
Well, I absolutely agree that immigrants should be allowed to come here. I am not anti-immigrant by any means.
And I also think that, maybe I could get behind the wall if we also had an immigration process as a whole that valued, humanity as much as it does effectiveness. Because right now, really, the only way that you can get into this country is you better be wealthy in funds and like actual wealth. You better be wealthy in time. You better be wealthy in connections. That's it. If not,
there are countless people who have migrated here successfully and are very happy to be American citizens. What I think we need to do is, I do think we need more initiatives, because I wanted to include, I didn't mention this earlier, that with these stats, it was not just a wall, which supports both my claim and your claim, Alyssa. It says, but a number of factors for the drop, including an increase in manpower, which you said, and I also agree with, technological upgrades, which you said, and I also agree with, and it's also something that Trump supports, and yes, changes in infrastructure like fencing improvements and vehicle barriers, or in this case, a wall. So when there are walls mixed with these other initiatives, we actually can see an even more effective stop for illegal immigrants. So I would say that it's this issue specifically. I don't think it's me versus you and you versus me. I think that our ideas can actually come together in some common ground, and we can see some really high success rates. I mean, just look at the statistics.
Right, but I don't trust that if we put the wall up, that at that point that we're actually going to really, restructure the immigration program. I can't trust that with Trump. I can't. And I can say anything that he's put on the table that they try to shame us for that we won't take because they're like, oh, well, we'll give you the wall if you'll give citizenship to dreamers. I mean, my boyfriend's a dreamer, you know that. And he does not think that getting his citizenship is worth the wall. We're both 100% against it.
Okay, sure.
All right. How about this question? Okay. The United States funds.
I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing? I'm so sorry.
Sure.
It's really short. I just wanted to say I'm so sorry. I just thought of that and I did not mean to cut you off, Brett. If I don't say it, I'm going to forget it.
It's all right.
I wanted to say the reason why that I don't trust the whole Hunter brought up that he was like, oh, well, this is what the Border Patrol agents think. I think if Hunter took some time to look at the percentage of corruption and the people who are actually our border agents, again, not shaming all of them. I'm sure there's some great, just like there's some great cops. But when the system that you're working for is structured in an oppressive way, and when that is at fault, then it's just kind of hard for me to see the good in with the bad. So it's hard for me to take what the Border Patrol agents are saying past face value because I know the corruption that is within that agency.
I think that is a cheap way to disregard a very solid fact that goes against what you believe. And I also think that there's not.
You would agree with me. I think you would agree with me by and large if you looked into the.
Well, what I do agree with you on is that we do need immigration reform. I've actually spoken about this in a recent video. Is that we can't just build a wall and expect all of our problems to magically go away. We need to build a wall, which will greatly deter illegal immigration. It'll deter some drugs, and it will help to slow down sex trafficking. Again, won't solve them all, but I think that it would greatly help, just like the Border Patrol agents believe. And secondly, I think we need an immigration reform. I think that right now it's far too difficult to become a citizen in this country. I think that if you're currently here on a visa, that you should not be excluded from receiving citizenship because, I don't know, you were smoking marijuana or something petty and small. I think that the immigration reform, I think the immigration system absolutely needs to be reformed. I hate the fact that people who come here legally are not given as many benefits or is treated with as much respect as the people who come here illegally. And I'd like to know what benefits
because, again, my boyfriend's here in DACA. My boyfriend is illegal. He's undocumented. I don't even like to use the word illegal because I don't think a human person can be illegal. But my boyfriend is undocumented and
unless they're a Nazi.
My boyfriend doesn't get to vote. He doesn't get access to health care. He doesn't get any of that stuff. In fact, he doesn't get any scholarships for college. We go to the same college. I paid maybe $2,500, $2,600 for a full 12 to 15 hour credit semester. He paid $2,500 for 4 credits. That's it. So all of these,
I think it's
things that undocumented people are getting over legal people. That is total facade.
That's at all. That is not what I was really trying to imply. I was talking more on a social level about how the left praises the illegal immigrants and treats them as if they are some kind of brave, awesome heroes, and they completely disregard.
I live with one, and yeah, they are. They're a lot more hardworking than most American men I know.
Okay, all right. Before we get too contentious here, let me ask you one more question about immigration. We're going to move on to feminism. Okay, America has helped over 77 other countries build walls in their countries, among other big infrastructure projects in other countries. Should we pull funding from expensive infrastructure projects in other countries in the spirit of not building walls here in America? That one's for Alyssa.
I'm sorry. Could you explain that one more time to me?
Should we stop building walls in other countries as well?
I will admit I'm not as familiar with what's going on with what we're building in other countries. So I don't know if I should really comment on that. I just I don't. Really
I think honestly, I think that's
I don't want to comment on something that I don't know facts about.
All right, let's move on to feminism. Now we'll give everyone a second to blast the comment section, everybody. All right, so this one is for Hunter. Let's define feminism in modern day America.
The advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes.
Alyssa, how would you respond to that definition?
So I actually have I pulled this up because I wanted to use the Merriam-Webster definition for feminism, right? So I really liked that one. Just want to make sure I read it word for word correctly. So it's just the belief that women and men should have equal rights and opportunities. I think that's also something clear, rights and opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alyssa, do you think that we have an equal opportunity and rights for women in America today?
No, I don't. I think we've definitely made great strides since, the original feminist movement, but I don't think we're all the way there yet.
Okay, help us understand what needs to happen in order for us to get to a point where we can now say, okay, we have made it. We are here.
So what needs to happen is I think we do need to address a lot of the issues that disproportionately affect women. And again, these are very overcomplicated issues that I can't just provide one simple solution for. But I think if we looked and worked to decrease these things, that we would see a more equal society. So the things that bother me the most is the fact that 2 to 3 women a day are killed by romantic male partners in this country. 1 in 5 women will be raped. 1 in 3 will experience some sort of sexual assault. That is true. I can give you all my statistics for that. And
there was a Department of Homeland Security study. I believe that was on college campuses that you're referring to. And there was a Department of Homeland Security.
This is an overall one. And just again, from personal experience, and I know that probably doesn't matter as much as whatever, but
it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all.
I just would like to, well, you know what? I'm just going to point out, because any other woman that I've talked to and any woman you will talk to will back me up on this. I don't know. I don't know.
Anecdotal. That's anecdotal evidence.
I'm sorry. Okay, whatever. I do not know a single woman that I have ever talked to or met that has not been sexually assaulted or raped.
So what is feminism going to do for those women?
Okay, I was, you're interrupting me here. I was, going to give my list and then wrap up here. So let me continue. 1/3 will experience some form of sexual assault. Half of multiracial women will be assaulted. 1/4 of girls and 1/6 of boys. 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 6 girls and boys will be sexually abused before 18. And I want to point out that yes, men do get sexually assaulted, and I am just as much of an advocate for that as well. But I also want to point out that almost every single time if a man is assaulted or raped, it's by another man. So again, it's men. There's not really anything with women there. I also want to point out that when we talk about equality, I'm sure Hunter's going to bring up the pay gap and say that it doesn't exist, and that's fine and dandy. I know there's been a decrease in that, but I want to say that there's some things that lead to lead to discrimination and things in the workplace. So 40% of women say, and this is just recently, 40% of women say that they face discrimination in the workplace solely based on their gender, as double the rate of men. Women are also 4 times more likely to be treated as if they were incompetent because of their gender. They're 3 times as likely to have experienced repeated small slights in the workplace. I have to bring up, there was a story a couple years ago. This was from like 2016 or 2017. It was 2 coworkers, and again, I'll provide all these in my links. 2 coworkers that worked at an intensive resume they worked on intensive resume revisions for clients that were in STEM fields. So they just had a basic desk job. So these 2 coworkers, male and female, they shared like a little office space. And what they did was one day they switched their email signatures. So now the woman was signing off as if she was the man was signing off as if she was the woman. The man ended up dealing with so much criticism. He was only able to process like maybe 5 cases, like barely any cases. The woman had her best week yet. Nobody doubted anything that she said. All of her clients respected everything that she said. Nobody doubted. She had a way easier time getting more sales and helping her clients through when she used a man's signature than when she used her own. In addition, there's also lots of proof of resume discrimination. There was actually a study conducted by the professors at Columbia Northwestern, and it found that 2/3 of managers selected male job candidates even when the men did not perform as well as the women on math problems in the application process. In major American universities, rampant gender bias was also found in research labs. So the same resumes would be sent to male and female professors looking to hire lab partners, and a male name garnered more offers and better pay and more mentoring opportunities, even though the resumes were literally exactly the same. Over a lifetime of work, a woman with a bachelor's degree will earn 1/3 less, $700K less, than a man with the exact same degree. There's also this idea that men are promoted on potential and that women are actually promoted on performance. So this was proven that when women who switch jobs 2 or more times after earning an MBA, they receive 53K less than women who stayed put at their first job and climbed the ranks. However, men who moved from their first post-MBA job earn 13K more than those who stayed with their first employer. So yeah, that's just some stuff. Again, I think if we could fight, there is still a lot of discrimination based on gender in the workplace. Anything like rape or sexual assault vastly harms females more than it does male. And I know Hunter's like favorite line is like, "What rights do women have that males don't have?" And again, like I said, it's rights and opportunities. But you know what? I would honestly give up so much if I could have the opportunity at any point in my life to walk outside in the middle of the night and by myself and feel safe, because that will never be something for me.
Hunter, would you like to respond? Yeah, of course. It's time.
Yeah, so you just gave me a lot of information, and I appreciate all that. I can't respond to every single thing you just mentioned because some of the studies you mentioned I quite honestly have not heard of. I do want to address, because I know this one, the where you say 1 in 3 women will be sexually assaulted. Was that what you said earlier?
It's 1 in 3 women are raped and 1 in 3 that are sexually assaulted. Right.
So that's actually oftentimes misconstrued. It's more about 1 in 3 women have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. So again, it's kind of a technicality. I'm not saying that it discredits anything or that it means it's not important, but I just want to make it very clear that a big feminist agenda and narrative is that women are constantly being sexually abused specifically. And this also says that 1 in 4 men have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner as well. This comes from National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. It's a government thing. So just to point that one out, just a little clarify a little bit, what I would say to all of these hardships that women are facing, what is feminism doing to help that? Because I agree that women face hardships, and I agree that men face hardships. I think sometimes men do face hardships based solely on the fact that they're men. For example, how biased and unfair the court systems are. But I also think that some women face hardships due to the fact that simply they're women, or that maybe their boss is a sexist or something. I'm not going to say hardships never exist. I'm just saying, what is feminism doing to help with any of these problems?
Well, I mean, if you're really a feminist, it's not man-hating, it's equality of both sexes. So it's not just the female stuff. Everything that you mentioned about males and their hardships, I 100% support and I 100% advocate for. So really,
you're wouldn't you technically be an egalitarian? I'm not
No.
trying to like do a gotcha
I
thing.
just,
You're like, I'm just curious.
I think that you're like, in my view, it's either you're a feminist if you're, and again, I'm not trying to, advocate for the people who that are extreme, that are like, not, I wouldn't call them feminists, but the people who are like very man-hating and stuff like that, like that's a skewed idea of feminism. That's not feminism.
Right.
I'm talking about the people who are legit feminism and want equality. Then that it's either you're feminist or you're sexist. In my opinion, I think feminism is wanting equality. And how do we do that? Well, it's feminists and the feminist movement that is always fighting back against any type of policy, like anything with, which again, I hate to bring up a whole other subject, but anything with Planned Parenthood, anything with the Me Too movement, like that is what feminism is about. And it may not look as tangible because a lot of things right now, it's, people really getting the word out and talking on social media and having marches, but, standing in solidarity and doing those types of things makes a big difference.
Right. Well, I would just want to say you mentioned a lot of difficulties that women are experiencing. And, again, I don't know the validity of everything you said, but I'm going to go ahead and take it at face value. And although I don't agree with it, although it's difficult, I still would say this is a little bit of a fine line on what you're going to call opportunity, because in this country, women do have equal opportunity and equal rights. Women are allowed and have the opportunity to apply for any job they want. They have the ability, they have the right and the opportunity to apply for. They have equal opportunities, but sometimes they won't receive
opportunity if all of those biases that I was talking about earlier are going on. Because I have the opportunity to apply, but I don't have the same opportunity as a man with the same background because he's getting more of an opportunity than I am.
Well, women, for example, in their 20s are out earning men. Women graduate at higher degrees than men in college. I think that's equal opportunity and shows that women can't succeed in this country.
Right, but then like I just said, when they get out with those same degrees, they're not getting the same pay.
That is not true. That's widely debunked at this point. I mean, this goes right back to the wage gap. And if we want to look at a study done by, hold on, let me finish. If we want to look at a study by the American Association of University Women, when you actually compare earnings properly, when you take in all these factors, okay, even if they have the same degree, that might not be the same as past work experience, or it might not be the same. There are many different factors that play in. And when you take in all these factors and compare them to the earnings, the wage gap shrinks to about 6.6%. And that can be explained. That's what everyone says, but that can be explained completely by the difference in choices that women make. In fact, according to Department of Labor 2009 study, they found that the existing gap, 6.6%, is almost entirely because of choices that women have made.
Do you think that any of this has to do with the choices that they make with gender roles and how we're raised? Because I know for fact that, just based on how I was raised and how other people were raised, we were taught really not to go into these things. Like, I don't know if you know this, but, in elementary school and middle school, the amount of women, or I guess they say the amount of girls that are into science and math and everything, it's like astronomical, sorry. There's it's like 70 or 80%. And then that dwindles down to where none of us are getting engineer degrees. And maybe it's because, or some of us might not be as interested in that or whatever. But I think that there is and it's changing now. I'm not going to deny that. But I think that there was a period of time where we were pushed to do other things because those things weren't, these things aren't female oriented.
Sure. I think that's absolutely how. I think that absolutely happened back in the 50s. Women were very, it was still really traditional. Women were encouraged to stay in the kitchen. And that's probably why, yes, back then you saw far less female scientists and so on. But nowadays, nowadays there is no little girl is in class and says, I want to be a scientist when I grow up. And the teacher's like, oh, no, you don't, honey. You want to go make sandwiches.
I'm not saying that.
Well, I'm just I get that listen, I know that biases exist. Biases exist for men also. Biases exist for everyone, and biases are going to be really hard to ever fully overcome. I just don't think that feminism is doing anything to help women with real issues. I think that women have equal rights and equal opportunity. And I think that when we look at the statistics, like I said, the rate that women are out earning men, the rate that women are graduating, and the fact that the wage gap nowadays is non-existent, and any gap there is because of the choices women make, I feel like that's pretty clear proof that a lot of what feminism is preaching about is now based on defunct logic.
No, it's not. I just gave you tons of statistics about discrimination in the workplace.
Again, I understand that discrimination and biases exist. I just don't think that feminism is doing anything to help that.
All right, we're running a little short on time, so we're just going to get a couple little more questions in. We're going to get a couple more questions in. We're going to wrap things up. This one is for Alysa. Intersectional feminism has been used as an umbrella term, which casts a very, very wide net into the trans community, and even to those who aren't even female. Does casting such a wide net alienate the women whom feminism was originally meant to address?
Absolutely not, because, I mean, even I can admit early feminist movements, they were extremely racist. Susan B. Anthony, I mean, they were advocating more so for the white female vote than the black female vote, obviously. So I think intersectionality has done nothing but make the cause more tangible, it's more outreaching, because all of those people, all of those different aspects of intersectionality, they all matter. And if anybody who claimed to be a feminist was offended by anything about intersectionality, then I would say that they aren't really a feminist. Because if your feminism isn't, intersectional, then it's not feminism to me.
Hunter, what do you have to say about that? Intersectionality casts a wide net even onto people who aren't actually female. Do you think that sort of gyps the women who feminism was originally meant to address?
I mean, technically no, because if we're going off based on what Alysa said, feminism is about equality for everyone. So I think that doesn't really chip anything. I mean, intersectionality, I don't agree with. I think it's just a big pity party for people to sit around and claim oppression and get oppression brownie points. Intersectionality it's fully based on entwining as much oppression that you can possibly find. So, for example, you have a black woman who maybe she's not getting hired because she's black, right? So that's a problem, because that's racism. That's discrimination based on her color. But you also have a problem that she's not getting, maybe now, the racism is taken care of. So maybe it's a little better, but she's also a woman, and now she's not being hired because she's a woman. She's at what a lot of intersectional feminists would call like a cross path. So she has two different kinds of factors playing into her being oppressed, which is what a feminist would say. I may not have explained that the very best, but I saw a intersectionality conference, which helped me understand a lot of what the beliefs are. But no, I don't think it's necessary. Again, I think that people have equal rights and opportunity in this country. So I don't think that a big pity party where everyone tries to pick apart and find every little oppression they've ever experienced and tie it up to make themselves look like the biggest victim is needed at all.
Can I just ask what you meant by intersectionality being a blanket term that didn't even include females anymore?
Oh, no. What I meant was that intersectional feminism is a blanket term that implies that some people under the umbrella, that are many of them don't necessarily have vaginas. Okay, we've got people under the intersectional feminism umbrella. They can be biological males. Is what I'm saying.
But Brett, it's about helping people who. It's for everyone, even people that might identify as female and not necessarily be biologically female.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so if they identify, then they're female. It's not females.
Okay. Well, I identify as a unicorn. It doesn't make it real. And we can get on. We want to debate biology.
And I have to point out, Hunter, this whole you think that these they're just trying to do you really think that people just want to play the victim card because it's fun?
Look
you
at
think
Jussie
because
Smollett.
it's fun?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not talking about Jussie. I'm not talking about celebrities. I'm talking about I have several friends that are trans, black, that are that are all a mix and everything, and I see what they suffer through. I see how hard it is for them to get a job. I see how hard it is for them to get health care because they get turned down. I see this stuff. They're not playing victims for fun.
I don't think
people are seriously hurting.
I don't think
you are thinking that it's just them doing it because they just want to play the victim card. This is tangible stuff. It just seems to me like you really aren't close to anybody or have truly sat down and talked with anybody besides people who are LGBTQ and conservative. So they're like snails voting for salt. But I digress.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, No, I don't think that everyone who's ever been victimized is faking it for attention, but this goes
That's
back
pretty much
to
what you just said, though, that they're
well,
all
this
just trying to
goes
play the victim card to see who can be the
well
most
that no
broken, who's the most
that's what
oppressed.
that's what intersectionality is. I don't think that everyone that's ever been victimized is just trying to play victim. I think that it's important. I do think it's important to look at the details of the story of the said victimized person, because as we've seen countless times now, we do live in a society that rewards victims. The left loves victims because they're more easily controlled. I've talked about this in a speech before. And so the idea, we do live in a society that rewards and promotes victims as if they are heroes. So yes, there's definitely a higher desire to be a victim.
What do you mean by that? You think it's a reward to get your? I mean, what is wrong with being recognized, being like someone validating what you're going through, and then help you get through that? It just seems to me like you've never
Nothing's
really
wrong with that,
struggled.
but look at how many times someone's victimization has been validated, and then it turned out that it was a hoax, or that it was fake, or that it was a ploy for attention.
Besides the recent thing with Jesse.
I can send you a list of countless times.
Yeah,
we've seen a huge rise in
and I
hate
can
crime
guarantee
hoaxes.
you that
But
anytime
this is getting
a
off
minuscule number compared to the people who are legitimately suffering right now.
right. And Alyssa, I want to get back on subject here, because this goes back to, like, I've talked about this in previous videos about, like, the issue of self-harm. So usually people who are, and I'm treading carefully here, because a lot of the time people who are suffering from depression and who self-harm, they keep that to themselves because they don't want people to know, because they are truly depressed. Oftentimes it's the people who are committing self-harm for the sake of getting attention, when they are so public about everything. And so no, I'm not saying that everyone who's ever been a victim. I feel
like you're really making blanket statements here.
Well, no, let me finish, please. I'm not saying that everyone who's ever been a victim, or whoever has sat down and opened up to you about, like, hey, like, I really didn't feel like I was treated fairly, is just trying to get victim points. But I think the people that run around prancing and, oh, I'm a victim, I'm so oppressed, look at me, oh, woe is me, all the time, every day, and they basically make a career out of being a victim, I think those people absolutely are doing it to earn victim points. And they're leeching off of this society the left has created that rewards victims.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd have to see the list. I don't think that takes away any validity from anything else, and nor do I think it's a big enough problem to even concern ourselves with.
All right.
What time is it?
All right. It's time to wrap it up here. This was a very, very great debate. It was a nice, fiery debate. Of course, I have about a billion other questions that we don't really have time to get to. But I just wanted to thank Hunter Avallone, the YouTuber and influencer. I also want to thank Alysa McNerney. I would like to thank Alysa McNerney, a writer and a YouTuber, for coming on the show, coming on Disgruntled USA to hash out some of these very, very important issues. Is there anything you guys would like to close us off with? A little shout out to your YouTube page. Let's get some traffic going. Hunter, you first.
I just want to say thanks for having me on. Thanks, Alyssa, for being great in the debate. And you guys can subscribe to my channel just by searching my name. It's Hunter Avallone.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was definitely interesting. You guys can check out my channel. It's youtube.com/Final Facts with Alyssa. And then the rest of my stuff is all linked in there somewhere.
Excellent. And you can make sure to blast the comment section. My name is Brett Segal, the Disgruntled Millennial, here on Disgruntled USA on Excluded Media. We are here in our safe space where we're always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And we're going to sign out for now. Thank you so much for joining the party, and we'll definitely see you next time.